When the stakes are high, the right words aren't decoration, they're decision tools. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to speak so people can see your reasoning and trust your choices.
Imagine your workday as a string of tiny choices, each one almost too small to notice. The extra sentence you add to an email so it doesn't sound cold, the way you pause before answering a pointed question, the honest phrase you choose when spin would have been easier. Those micro moments add up. They shape whether people trust you, whether teams move with you, and whether your organization's values show up when it matters. This is a book about those moments, about speaking in a way that makes ethics visible, practical, and persuasive in everyday professional life. It's part of a larger project I'm building called Mastering Professional Conversations, a series of short, accessible books designed to help you talk the big ideas of work with clarity and confidence. The series tackles themes like value, strategy, learning, systems, and here, ethics, always with the same promise. Make deep thinking usable under pressure, and make useful language stick in your mouth when the stakes feel high. In this volume, I'll invite you to try simple models, phrases, and lenses you can reach for in the corridor, after a tense meeting, on the way into a negotiation, or in the moment someone asks you a question you didn't see coming. The aim isn't to turn you into a philosopher. It's to help you become a more trustworthy voice in rooms where trust is hard to earn and easy to lose. Much of what you'll hear in this script draws from my book, Speak Smart, Act Ethical, Building Trust in Everyday Decisions, part of the Mastering Professional Conversations series. And like that book, it treats ethics as a conversational craft grounded in real work, real constraints, and real people. Before we dive into tools, let's ground the story in something you know. Think back to a recent decision that left a faint sting. Maybe you were right on the substance, but the way you communicated it soured the room. A supplier felt judged, a colleague felt dismissed, a community partner walked away. You can follow the rules and still lose trust if people can't see your reasoning, or if the language you use makes them feel like a problem to be managed rather than a partner to be respected. Ethics lives in those perceptions. It's not an abstract document in a drawer. It's a lived practice that shows through your tone, your timing, your choice of words, and your willingness to be transparent about trade-offs. The series exists because expertise alone isn't enough. We all know people with impeccable technical knowledge whose ideas keep bouncing off the walls. We also know people who carry a room without bullying it, who can name tensions without escalating them, who speak in ways that help people feel respected even when they disagree. That is conversational skill, and when you apply it to ethical questions, you get credibility that lasts longer than any single decision. In Mastering Professional Conversations, every volume follows a steady rhythm. Define ideas in plain language, bring them down to earth with stories from different sectors, supply a few visual models and metaphors so the concepts travel in your head, and offer ready-to-use phrases so you're never left searching for a sentence when you need one. This book is built on that rhythm. It treats ethics as something you can practice, not a halo you either have or don't. So what does ethical conversation look like in real life? Picture a project manager declining a gift from a long-standing supplier. A 2-line email citing policy might be correct, but it can land like an accusation. Now picture the same refusal framed with care. We value our relationship, and our policy means I have to decline. Let's talk next week about the upcoming tender. The action didn't change. The story did. When people can see your values and your intent, they're far more likely to respect your decision, even if it disappoints them. To make that visibility repeatable, I want you to try a simple portable structure you can use whenever a decision needs to be explained. Context, lens, evidence, action, response. I call it CLEAR because good ethical talk makes the cloudy parts clear. First, give just enough context so everyone shares the same facts. Then name the lens, the values or principles you're using to look at the choice. Offer the evidence, the data or reasoning that actually shaped you. Declare the action, what you're going to do, and then open the door to response. Invite questions, alternative views, and refinements. It sounds basic, and that's the point. Under stress, your brain loves shortcuts. A tiny scaffold keeps you from dropping the ethical part of the conversation when the clock is loud. This clear structure is threaded throughout the book it's based on, not as jargon, but as a habit of talk you can use on the fly. Let's play it out in different corners of work. In the performing arts, a company considers staging a brilliant but culturally sensitive piece. Clear might sound like this. Here's the context. The work draws on traditions that belong to a community we care about. The lens for us is respect and representation. The evidence, feedback from community advisors and our own values statement. The action, we'll proceed only with collaboration and shared authorship. And the response, we want your questions and suggestions about who should be at the table. No one needs a seminar on moral philosophy to feel the integrity of that talk. In logistics, you might be renegotiating delivery windows because pushing drivers past safe rest limits is not acceptable. Clear becomes context. Demand spikes have stretched our network. Lens, safety and sustainability. Evidence, rest hour data and incident risk. Action, we're moving to longer windows this quarter. Response, tell us where the change will hurt most so we can plan mitigations. In humanitarian logistics, where choices are often heartbreaking, Clear gives you a way to explain triage without sounding callous. Here's where the need is most acute. Here's the lens we used, impartiality and risk reduction. Here's the evidence we weighed. Here's the action, and here's exactly how to appeal or add information we may have missed. Clear works because it forces you to put values into words before you hide behind process. It prevents what researchers call ethical fading, the way moral content silently drops out of view when we frame problems as purely technical. If you've ever heard it's just efficiency or it's only a compliance tweak, you've seen ethical fading at work. The fix isn't more drama, it's better language. Say the quiet part out loud. This change saves money, but it also reduces safety margin. Here's how we'll protect it. Once that sentence is spoken, the room can do real thinking. The hiding stops and the trust starts. Now when people push back, they don't usually do it with philosophy words. But philosophy can still help you keep your footing. I want you to carry 4 simple lenses in your pocket: principle, outcome, character, and care. Think of principle or deontological reasoning as your non-negotiables. Honesty in reporting, consent in data use, safety standards that don't flex. Think of outcomes or utilitarian reasoning as your duty to maximize benefit and reduce harm for the most people. Think of character or virtue ethics as the kind of person and organization you are visibly becoming through repeated actions, fair in promotions, generous in credit, steady under pressure. And think of care as your attention to relationships and context, how the decision lands for the people it touches, especially those with less voice or power. When you speak, you can quickly name which lens you're using. We can't misstate the lead time, that's principle. Or, this plan serves more people with the same budget, that's the outcomes lens. Or, we want to be the kind of company that keeps its promises under pressure, that's character. Or a team member is caring for a parent, we're going to flex deadlines, that's care. Those tiny tags teach people how you think. They also invite others to add the lens you might be missing, which is how conversations become more balanced instead of more polarized. The book this draws on walks through those lenses and shows their use across performing arts, logistics, humanitarian work, finance, manufacturing, public service, and technology. So you can practice translating them in your world rather than just nodding at the theory. Because our minds can fog under load, I also want to give you 3 images you can hold when the moment is messy: a compass, a triangle, and an amber light. The compass doesn't tell you the route, it gives you north, your core values, so you can orient when visibility is low. The triangle keeps you from lopsided decisions by asking you to balance duty, outcomes, and relationships. The amber light is the bravest of the three. It's your permission to pause. When urgency is thundering and the decision is irreversible, call amber, ask for an hour a day, another voice. It's amazing how many preventable harms shrink when someone in the room is willing to say, "This is amber, let's check our assumptions before we go." These models are there in the book because they're easy to remember in hard minutes. They make private reasoning public so others can follow, question, and improve it with you. So far, we've stayed close to human judgment, but technology has changed the tempo. Algorithms now nudge who sees your work, who gets the job interview, which delivery route you drive, where aid flows first, and how risk is priced. They are not magical or neutral. They are human choices frozen into code and scaled. That's why ethical conversation about technology starts with demystification. Explain what the system does in plain language. Say what data trained it. Say what definition of fairness you've chosen and why. Say who is accountable when it goes wrong. This isn't hand-wringing, it's governance. And if automation will change people's jobs, don't hide the human story in passive voice. Speak to dignity. Speak to transition. Speak to retraining with actual dates and budgets, not slogans. The fastest way to turn a good innovation into a reputational fire is to pretend the people it affects don't exist. The book leans into this terrain because the pace and opacity of AI make it far too easy for organizations to move faster than their ethics. Your voice, steady, clear, and open to inspection, is a safety device here. Ethics also shows up in the way we talk about productivity. A century ago, Frederick Taylor gave management a stopwatch, and we learned to count our way to efficiency. Counting wasn't the problem. Forgetting what counts was. When speed becomes a religion, safety quietly becomes a suggestion. Inclusion becomes a luxury. Long-term capacity gets mortgaged for short-term wins. If you lead people, you will feel these tensions every week. Cost versus safety, speed versus inclusivity, quarterly target versus long-term resilience. You can't wish those dilemmas away, but you can name them early, keep them honest, and anchor them to values bigger than this month's metric. That's what ethical productivity talk sounds like. We'll hit this deadline without cutting rest hours. If we can't, we'll renegotiate the deadline, not the safety. Or, we're building in time for those who are affected to be heard. Yes, it takes longer. That's the price of decisions that stick. Or we're protecting maintenance budgets because reliability is part of value, not outside it. A sustainable definition of productivity, people and planet alongside profit, isn't a PR line. It's a design choice you renew in meeting after meeting. The book lays out this shift without sermons, tying it to practical moves leaders can make so that efficiency and ethics stop pretending they're enemies. If you're thinking, "This all sounds good, but I still need words," here are some you can use tomorrow. When you have to say no, try. "I can't agree to that, and I want to explain why, so we keep trust intact." When you need to slow down, try. "This looks like an amber moment. Can we pause to bring in one more perspective?" When the room is polarized, try, "Let me show you the triangle I'm using, duty, outcomes, relationships, and where this proposal sits. What am I underweighting?" When someone feels unheard, try, "I may miss the context from where you sit. Tell me what I'm not seeing." When a choice will hurt, try, "This decision has a cost, and I don't want to hide it. Here's why I still think it's right, and here's what we'll do to reduce the harm." You don't need the perfect sentence. You need a few honest ones that match your values and match the moment. What about when good intentions backfire? It happens all the time. We frame a problem as purely technical and erase the people in it. We sell a streamline that strips out the very factor that made something safe. We assume our ethical standards are universal and trip over a culture we didn't bother to learn. The way out isn't self-blame, it's earlier conversation. Ask the right questions when there's still time to shape the path. What ethical issues could be fading from view right now? How is this being framed in a way that hides real costs, whose perspective isn't in the room yet? Make those questions routine, and you'll be amazed how often the room saves itself from the future apology. Now come back with me to those sectors where language shapes legitimacy in very different ways. In the performing arts, ethical talk is part of the show. It shows up in casting, in collaboration, in how you credit people whose work is invisible to the audience. The line between courage and care is thin and important, and your words make it visible. In logistics, ethical talk is about promises you can keep without breaking bodies or the planet. You can be fast without being reckless, but only if you say out loud where the red lines are and keep them red when money gets loud. In humanitarian work, talk is part of the aid. People measure respect by whether you explain choices they didn't choose. In public service, authority rests on the clarity and fairness of your explanations. In manufacturing, the conversation about quality, safety, and environmental impact is a trust engine more powerful than any ad campaign. In finance and technology, a single cloudy sentence can set off a chain of suspicion that takes months to unwind. Across all of these, reputation is the living memory of your ethics. It is not a press release. It is the sum of 1,000 visible, consistent conversations. Let me give you a compact portrait of a leader who gets this right. She starts with context, not conclusions. She names the values at stake without smuggling in judgment. She distinguishes fact from inference. She declares action with specificity. Who will do what by when? She invites response and means it. She says, "I don't know," when she doesn't, and "I was wrong" when she was. Her team doesn't fear ethics, because ethics doesn't show up only as a problem. It shows up as a way of speaking that keeps people safe, seen, and smart together. That's not personality. That's practice. You can learn it. If you want to make this stick, choose one meeting this week to practice clear. Write a few phrases on a card. For context, try, "Here's the situation in 2 lines." For lens, try, "The value I'm using to look at this is." For evidence, try, "What moved me most was." For action, try, "Given that, we will." For response, try, "What did I miss? What would you change?" It will feel simple, maybe even obvious. That feeling is a feature. Simplicity under pressure is a superpower. Choose one lens you underuse and make it audible 3 times this month. If you're very outcome-driven, speak to principle once more than you would. If you love principle, name relationships and care. If you take pride in character, force yourself to articulate measurable outcomes for those who need them to trust you. If you're a caregiver by nature, don't forget to say clearly what will be done and by when, so care doesn't become blur. Choose one of the models and make it visible. Put the compass values on the wall where decisions happen. Sketch the triangle in the notebook you carry. Teach your team what amber means and give them permission to call it. Ritualize these small things so they are there when the room heats up. Choose one technology conversation and refuse to let it happen in code words. Explain the system to a non-expert in plain language. Name the data and the fairness choice. Declare accountability. Make the human plan for those whose work will change. If you can't say those things, you're not ready to deploy. Choose one productivity debate and slow it down long enough to ask, what are we counting and what are we not counting that still counts? If the thing being traded away is safety, inclusion, or long-term capacity, say so. If you still choose speed, own the risk and outline the guardrails. If you choose to protect people and planet, own the cost and outline the payback in resilience and trust. When leaders talk this way, productivity and ethics stop being enemies and start being teammates. As you practice, you will notice something lovely and stubborn. People respond to sincerity. They can smell posturing. They can also feel when you are genuinely trying to reason in public, to make your values visible and your trade-offs fair. That feeling travels. It makes other people braver. It invites dissent that sharpens rather than shames. It turns ethics from a punitive word into a creative one. And yes, you will still make mistakes. You will misread a room. You will speak too soon or too late. You will apply the wrong lens or forget to call amber. When you do, don't retreat into silence. Use the same tools to repair. Context: what happened? Lens: the value you missed. Evidence: what you learned. Action: what you'll do differently. Response: how others can hold you to it. Every time you do that, you don't just fix a moment. You earn a little compound interest in trust. If you'd like a companion you can keep on your desk, that's exactly why I wrote the book this script is based on. It's structured to be used, not admired. Short chapters, plain language, ready phrases, simple diagrams, and examples that cross sectors so you can borrow what fits and leave what doesn't. It belongs to the Mastering Professional Conversation series because the way we talk is part of the work, not an afterthought. The more complex our networks become, the more our words carry the weight of the systems we're trying to run. Make them strong. Make them kind. Make them clear. Let's end where we began, with those tiny choices. The extra sentence, the honest pause, the steady explanation that lets people see not just what you decided, but who you are. That's ethics at work, not a halo, a habit. A way of showing up so people can trust you, even on the days you're not perfect, even when outcomes aren't neat, even when the road is foggy and the only thing you can see clearly is your north. Speak that north. Invite others to look with you, and keep going. If this resonates and you want the fuller guide with stories, models, and phrases you can put to work today, this book is available on Amazon and the link is provided in the comments.